Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you all to today's event, which is we're going to have a discussion and exchange on how to fight gender stereotypes. My name is Mavis Mainu, and I am the curator or the leader of the Global Shapers Düsseldorf Hub. I also work with the Climate Science Research Institute, where I support the CEO on strategy work development and organizational planning. I'm also a student of Women and Gender Studies and also co-founded and co-managing an NGO that supports girls in Ghana to access education. So as you can see, I am a woman wearing many hats, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to today's event. Just a few announcements that we will be taking some screenshots as well at the beginning of the event. So we would encourage you to put on your video, but if you're uncomfortable with that, we also welcome you to take off your video. Also, in order to make this event as close as an in-person meeting, we would really love to have a video of you showing or put it on your video so that we can have a very great interaction and have this meeting to feel as close as it would if it were an in-person meeting. So thank you all for joining this event, and we're looking forward to a fruitful event and a nice evening. So I am going to share my screen now and quickly take you through the agenda for today's event. So for the first part of the session, I will be introducing you to the Global Shapers Düsseldorf Hub and the Global Shapers community and telling you a little bit of who we are and what we do. I would also introduce you to the Women Leading Forward project. The second part of the events will move straight into the speakers. So the speakers will join us and they will talk to us about how we can fight gender stereotypes. There would be a question and answer session after each. There will be a question and answer session after each speaker, so we'll have the opportunity to ask clarifying questions and also to contribute to the conversation. And then in the last part, of course, we'd also love to meet each other in networks. So we'll put ourselves into small breakout rooms so that we can exchange and meet other participants here at the event. So this is how our evening is going to look like. And in total, we will be spending about 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now, talking about or introducing you to who we are and what we do, we are the Global Shapers Düsseldorf Hub. The Global Shapers Düsseldorf Hub is part of the Global Shapers community. So the Global Shapers community is a youth organization which is under the World Economic Forum. I don't know how many of us have heard of the Global Shapers community. Maybe you can wave, just like a quick wave if you've heard about us before. Okay, I don't see many hands. Yeah. So the Global Shapers community, we are, basically our mission is simple. We are young people who are committed to creating impact or we are in the communities where we are based or where we find ourselves. So we organize ourselves into hubs, and hubs are located in cities. So at the moment, we are located in 446 hubs, which means that we are in 446 cities around the world and in 151 countries. So we are quite a global organization and a global group of young people coming together to create impact in our communities. In Germany, the Global Shaper, the Düsseldorf Hub is one of the hubs that is located in Germany. And at the Global Shapers Düsseldorf Hub, we are located in the North Rhine-Westphalia region. Obviously, for those of you who are based in Germany, you know Düsseldorf is in the North Rhine-Westphalia region, so that's where we are. We are about 21 members, and we are currently recruiting more members, and we are always also open to receiving young people who are interested in creating impact. So if you're such a person interested in social work or community work and engagement, we welcome you to put in an application and join us. At the moment, we are working on actively on 3 projects. So our first project focuses on climate and sustainability, which is and the project's name is We Make the City Makes Us. So we are working with the city, the Sustainability Office of the Düsseldorf city, on this project. The second project that we are working on is the We Care project, which works with older people who are living in old age homes. And the third project that we work on is the Women Leading Forward project, which has actually brought us all here together this evening. So I will talk more about the Women Leading Forward project, which is why we are all here today. And the Women Leading Forward project, this is the team. So these are the 4 women, amazing women who are behind the project. There's Kamand Gharun, who is the project lead, Tamara Koljozova, Siman Lee, and myself, Mavis Mainu, with different expertise and backgrounds. So from law, with a business background, development, cooperation, and sustainability. So there's quite a broad base of expertise here. Now, the Women Leading Forward project, our mission or aim, it's simple. We believe that everybody can be a leader for gender equality by being a leader for themselves. So we are all leaders, regardless of what gender we are. We can be a leader for gender equality. And we do this, what we do is we try to raise consciousness, so awareness raising and encouraging conversations around gender. And by through storytelling, through networking, and through organizing events such as this. And so for tonight, what we'll be talking about, we will be looking at the gender stereotypes and how we can fight it. So for this evening, we'll be listening to our local heroes, and that's how we call our speakers local heroes. So we'll be listening to them, and everybody here in the event is also a local hero. So we are all local heroes. And we are looking forward to an evening of exchange and learnings and discussions. And this is just going to be the starting point for the conversation. The conversations is not going to end at the end of the event. We are hoping that this will just be the starting point, and we'll take the conversations out of this event, and hopefully that we can use the knowledge that we get here to create some kind of change and to raise more awareness and consciousness in our communities and the places where we find ourselves. And also to connect with other people, which is also a very important part of the reason why we organize our events, to meet new people. Now, I think that I would now hand over to Kamand, who would introduce our lovely and amazing speakers for today's session, and then we will dive into the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mavis, for presenting our hub and the project group Women Leading Forward. I have now the pleasure to introduce you to our speakers for tonight. Miriam is a PhD researcher in regional governance of gender, peace, and security at the University of Düsseldorf. She's also a strategic policy and research advisor at the Center for Feminist Foreign Policy. Before that, she has worked with UN Women Germany. Kay is a PhD candidate in physical chemistry in Stuttgart and has lived in China and Singapore before. She was part of the Feminist Spring Society that was standing up for women's rights and LGBTQ rights through stage art and performance. Miriam, I give the floor to you.
Thank you so much. I hope my internet connection will work. Let's see how that will go. Thank you so much for having me and also being part of this amazing project. It's an honor. And I'm really looking forward also to the breakout sessions. If you have like questions of any kind, please feel free to ask them. And if you don't feel comfy talking about certain topics here, you can also approach me via Instagram or Twitter. I leave my handles in the chat afterwards. So yeah, I'm Miriam. Usually I'm in Bonn and I'm a researcher at the Heinrich Heine University in Düsseldorf. But now I'm at the Black Forest, spending time with my family. And like also Kamand said, I'm working for the Center for Feminist Foreign Policy, which is a research, advocacy, and consultancy organization based in Berlin and in London. And we are fighting for feminist foreign policy in Germany, but also like our goal is to have a feminist foreign policy on a global scale. And there, of course, we are dealing with a lot of gender stereotypes in the political sphere. And that's also where we'll focus on today. And for me, my perspective is like, yeah, from an Afro-German on foreign policy. So it's definitely like I'm definitely influenced by Black feminism, by intersectionality, and also actually anti-capitalist thinking. And that's also important for you to know when I'm going to speak about gender stereotypes. And in general, when we look at foreign policy or politics in general, we have so many examples of women. If they make it to the top and they are in a leading position, usually they are not really, represented in a really respectful way. How they are being portrayed in the media is often super sexist and also often super racist. And this is important to understand because when women make it to the top, then it's not about their qualification or their actual work. It's always about how they behave and how they look. And I mean, this is not just only unfair, it's also harmful for those thinking about going into politics and for those also being women in politics, because they're through that kind of media representation or presentation, it also leads to a kind of a competition. For example, I once Googled like the 10 most influential like women in politics in Germany. And what I got, like the first hit on Google was like the 10 most sexy women in politics in Germany. And I was like, that's not what I Googled. I wanted to know something else. But this is where the people emphasize when they think about women in politics. And there was this quite popular situation where once the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, she went to an event and she was wearing a dress and you could see like a little bit of skin, not even that much, but just a little bit. And like the media talked about it like, oh my God, is this too sexy for a chancellor? Like, can she even wear something like that? And I think this situation really has shown also how conservative Germany, for example, is being confronted with women in powerful positions. Because for the German media and German society, like there were like two different things, like a woman in power, and a woman wearing a dress. So these are two different things for the audience. And another example is also from when I talk about German politics. Actually, in Bavaria, there's I think only one trans woman being outed and working as a politician in Bavaria, and she is also portrayed in a really harmful way in the media. If they talk about her, but they usually, it's never about her work. It's always about her gender identity and whether she's mentally fit to do the job, and comments like this. And like I said, that's not only unfair because all the other politicians, they don't get these kind of comments. It's harmful for the politician herself, but also for other trans women, trans men who would like to go into politics and make it public, and they think, okay, if I then go into politics, will that be the only thing people will talk about? And coming back to a more like personal story, I find it quite challenging, like being a Black woman living in Germany, working in academia and in foreign policy, which are both super wide spaces. And it's not just only about being Black, it's also, I have like a working class background. And usually people in foreign policy are super privileged and have like have been like in elite circles for a really long time. And if they are confronted again with someone from working class background and non-white background, either they ask whether I'm here like as an intern or because of a quota. Like they never ask me what I'm actually doing. They're always making assumptions. Or I'm not being, my work isn't being acknowledged, or I'm just like ignored because people think I'm not important enough. So it's not just about being Black, it's not just about being a woman, it's not just about my working class background, it's also about my age, because I'm 29, and people often think I'm much more younger and then assume, because if they think I'm young, I'm not like, I can't really contribute to discussions, or I'm not that experienced, which is also not true, because I know my worth, I know how much I can do, I know how much I know, and this is not really necessarily linked to like the duration of lived experience. So what I want to say is that if we talk about stereotypes, it's not just about being a woman or being a trans woman. It's also, there are several layers that you have to take into consideration when you talk about gender stereotypes. And one last thing before I hand over to Kamand is that I think it's really important, especially for people who are portrayed from the majority as being outside of the norm, that I would suggest don't invest that much time to adapt, to be integrated, because by the end of the day, you will always be like the outsider or someone not fitting into the norm. I would suggest invest more time in embracing yourself and the identity you want to be, because then you feel way much more like comfy, and also you're honest to yourself. Because it's, when it comes to stereotypes, we're working towards a world where we don't have stereotypes, but at the moment we have them and they are super harmful. And I think we shouldn't invest that much energy and time to always fight those stereotypes. And instead, we should invest time to embrace ourselves and be who we really are. Yeah.
Thank you, Miriam. I really love your message to embrace who we are, because in the end, stereotypes only hold us back from exactly that, just developing our abilities, who we are as a person, and what we want to do in our life, what would make us happy and give us a fulfilled life. Are there already any questions? Feel free to just raise your hand. I see Tamara. Tamara and Mavis. Tamara, you go first.
No, actually, mine was not a question. It was just to congratulate.
Oh, you were clapping. Okay.
Yeah, it was a reaction.
Okay, my bad. Mavis, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question, but because I'm part of the organizers, if there's any participants, maybe I'll give them the space, otherwise I'll just go ahead. Yeah, so I really like the intersectional analysis that you gave. So, and it's really quite true because different identities, right, intersect to create the kind of stereotypes, like people experience. So as a Black person, there might be some kind of stereotypes that you face that maybe a white person would not. And also you brought the analysis of the class or your age. So I really like that you brought in that perspective. My question is on positive stereotypes, right? So, I mean, you did mention a lot of stereotypes and all of them were like the negative side, but we also do know that there are some stereotypes that could also be positive. So, for example, they say that women are more collaborative, like than men. So in your view, how are such stereotypes also harmful? Like even though they are positive, how could they also be harmful to us?
You have to unmute yourself, Miriam.
Sorry, I was like strong enough. I clicked on a button, but not strong enough. So I just have to say it's super important to talk about the so-called positive stereotypes, because in the beginning, or when we also look at the feminist discourse, for example, why women should be at the table and at the negotiation table when we talk about peace negotiations. There's this one feminist understanding that they are arguing, like women should be there because they are super peaceful and they bring in peace and they think about other groups and they don't just think about themselves. And this is for me like super interesting to see, because this reproduces like gender roles and gender stereotypes. And this reproduction is used actually to gain gender equality, which is for me like, it's for me just like false, because in my opinion, you can't really achieve gender equality if you use the existing structures and assumptions of gender, because in the end they are harmful. And but I also think that we shouldn't be so hard to ourselves, because we all have been socialized in this really gendered society and this super sexist society and racist society. So there are things that we have learned and that we think are assigned to our gender. But by the end, when we then are in the process of unlearning them, then we are surprised that actually no, that has never been like part of my identity. I just played a role, and this is super exhausting. And also I think actually I would say it's not fun at all to do that, but it's really like freeing by the end. If you have gone through that process, then you're like, okay, like that wasn't me. So when you are unlearning those positive gender stereotypes, don't be too hard on yourself. And I think also when we talk about those positive stereotypes, for example, there's the stereotype that all Black people can dance, or like Black women, they're so wild, and all this kind of stuff, all these kind of things, where people think, this is positive, so why is this like why is this racist, or why is this like sexist? It is still negative, because like I said in the beginning, such stereotypes, even if people think they are positive, they prevent you from being yourself, because you always then they have in your mind that you have to play that role, although it's not you. So I would say, although there might be like good intentions using those positive stereotypes, there will certainly be unintended harmful consequences for the person. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And just like to add that I think it's also sometimes could give like a pass, right, to people to behave in a certain way because it is assumed. So like, for example, they say like women are collaborative. So it gives like men or non-binary people, so to say, like the pass not to be collaborative, you know, like that's just an example. So that's like in my thinking, like another way that such positive stereotypes could also be harmful by giving people the pass, you know, to behave in a certain way because a certain group of people are supposed to behave a certain way. So yeah, thank you so much, Miriam, for the answer.
Thank you. Any other questions so far? I mean, I myself wasn't, to be honest, wasn't aware of positive stereotypes, because usually when you think of stereotypes, you always relate to, you know, the negative impact. But that's true because, you know, now that I'm thinking, even with positive traits or characteristics, you in a way tell people how they are supposed to act, behave, how they're supposed to be, and when they do not you know, fulfill these expectations, that can lead to serious you know, mental or physical issues, because people feel like there's something wrong with them, even if it is society, by dictating and trying to, you know, yeah, set these standards and norms that are not made for humans, because we're all individuals and different, and yeah, have different personalities, and all our lives are impacted by different factors. So yeah, thank you so much, Miriam.
I have a question.
Yes, you go.
So, hello, Miriam. My name is Paloma. I'm from Brazil, and I love your lecture for us. And I really want to know that, for example, here in Brazil, like 54% of the population is they are from descendants from Black people. So we are all like the half of the Brazilians are Black, you know. So for us, of course, it's even if half of the population here is Black, most of the people don't have like the conscious or the knowledge about the structural racism and everything that is surrounded by this issue. And we have like here some authors, some writers that really like give us the knowledge, like really teach us. Of course, for example, we read a lot about like Angela Davis, Bell Hooks, that they are like American feminists, Black feminists that really teach us about races. But I want to know that how is it in German? Like, do you have like main authors, Black writers that teach German people about racism? And I know that it's a really big deal there because of I know that it's not that common, and because of the immigration issues, I know that there are the context is very different. But I want to know like which authors do you read to learn more about and to teach more people about it?
Yeah, and thank you for your question. First of all, like a big shout out to the feminist queer Black movement in Brazil. I'm following like some of the feminist or feminist collectives, and also I know from there's this group called Black Women Radicals, and they post a lot on Brazilian Black feminism. So I'm really happy to have someone from Brazil here. I heard like several questions out of your one question. So the first thing you mentioned was also that, for example, yeah, you read like Bell Hooks or Lord and so on, which are like super important figures. But and there's like also here in Germany, I mean, their work is helping a lot to understand stereotypes and injustice. But at the same time, I think it's still always important to read authors who really know the context and have experienced the context. Because being, for example, a Black woman in Brazil is something different than being a Black woman in the US or being a Black woman in Germany. Although there are a lot of similarities, because racism and sexism and other forms of oppression are a global thing. It's not just like they happen in one country and not in the other one. But the impact of these kind of oppressions and also the consequences they differ from region to region, from country to country. And so in Germany, there is like a really strong Black feminist movement, but it's not that visible. So one of my like role models is Natasha A. Kelly. Actually, she also did something in Brazil. And she is someone like one of the leading voices, rebringing Black feminism into the German discourse. But it's not just like the Black feminist movement was highly influenced by Audre Lorde, who has spent some years in Berlin. And there she started a group among Black queer women. And they have published a book. It's called Farbe bekennen. And it's the book, it's one of the founding books, you can say, of Black feminism in Germany. And among there were Maya Yim, who has passed away. But she was also like a poem who really pushed for an Afro-German identity. And I still think, like, because of last year and the Black Lives Matter protests in Germany, there's now a different level of discourse about stereotypes in general, but it's still really in the beginning. So it's not like people are still arguing whether like harmful stereotypes exist, whether racism exists. So I think, like you mentioned before, in Brazil, that although there's a huge community of Black people, their interests and also their role in society isn't really visible. And in Germany, like, Black people are a minority, but still, like, or despite that fact, also their interests are not really well represented, and more the harmful stereotypes are being reproduced than disrupted. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Anna,
Sure,
for your question, and thank you, Miriam, as well. Was there something you wanted to add, Anna?
Oh no, I'm in a work meeting, but I really didn't want to miss this talk. So thank you so much, and please, let's be friends. I really want to connect with each other and all of you if you want to know more about Brazil and other stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, this is why I think these kind of meetups are so valuable, because everyone has their own perception and experience, and through sharing we get this better understanding of what issues do exist and how different they can be as well. So thank you for this part. And I'm very excited because we have a second speaker. Kay, are you ready? I would give the floor to you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I really agree with what Miriam shares. So in Germany, actually, I don't feel that much about gender stereotype as being a woman, but being a being an Asian, so like every day you do feel this different. Most of the time you are just invisible, like people don't feel your existence, and sometimes they just ask you weird questions, or when you meet someone new, they always ask really weird questions about your culture background. So like, I think it's sometimes because people don't know anything about this, and Germany has a really short immigrant history, so it's like a historical reason. I think this will be much better in a few years, or when we have more generations of immigrants. Yeah, so now let's start sharing. I prepared a very simple slides just for guiding you through this. Where is it? Yeah. Can you see it? Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, thanks Global Shapers for organizing this nice event. And as Kamand already introduces me, so I can start. Yeah, because Miriam already talked about a lot in what happens in Germany. So I want to talk about what happened in China when I was still back there. But I want to emphasize that this gender stereotype or this sexual operation is much stronger when one enters the society when you finish your school or university. But I only finished the education phase and then I went abroad. So it's just a sneak view about what's going on in China. So I think my experience can be divided into two phases. The first one is pre-feminist phase, and when I was 21 years old, I got in touch with feminism. So it totally changed my life and gave me a new perspective of the whole world, and it really influences what I do with my life. And because I always had short hair since I was 3 years old, so it's a bit different from the other girls I know back in China. So it's kind of a B story. And I really love this film from Celine Sciamma about, yeah, it's like when you have this boy look when you were little and you just have very different feelings and experience. So I remember I also dressed really like a boy and I like to play soccer ball. But when I grew up and I started to have this breast, it was really difficult to get involved with this boys team, and I couldn't really play that sport, so I had to give up. Yeah, and also, so I just had this tiny experience when I was little, and after I became a feminist, so all the scattered memories just come together to fall into the whole picture, and I can really reflect like what I've been through and how it is caused by this structural problem that I had all these difficulties. So in my childhood, most of the girls just liked to play with teddy bear and Barbie dolls and some cutie Comic Cons, but I just really never fitted in this picture because I just like model guns and this ancient Chinese kung fu and electrical circuits. So I remember I always played with my cousins, like simulating the old kung fu master and the apprentice and passed down the power and things. And I think my parents did a great job because they are really tolerating about this, or a bit supportive. So because I know quite a few of my friends couldn't enjoy all this happiness because they think they are not doing the girl thing and they should not do that. And there's a whole story about this hair length thing. So at the first day of my primary school, I remember the toilets in the kindergarten was gender neutral, so I didn't have any idea about gender. So the first day of school, I went to the first toilet I saw, and all the boys just stared at me like, what are you doing here? And then I changed to the girl toilet, and all the girls were also staring at me like, what are you doing here? Because I had really short hair and they thought I was a boy. So I was kicked out of the toilet, and then I had to talk with some teacher, and this teacher leads me into the toilet. So I finally made my first day at school. Yeah, that's my first experience about gender. I didn't know why my parents never talked with me about this, but I just didn't have any idea until I was 6. And there was another time when I walked through the playground of my school. So I was wearing a dress, and two boys just passed by and whispered like, "Ha, a boy in a dress! How funny that is!" It's yeah, it's just the whole thing about this length of hair. And through until I was 18 years old, I think I was always mistaken as a boy on the street. So like all the street sellers just call me the handsome. And the last time it happened was still like 2 years ago in the Italian Alps. I was kicked out from the female toilet just with this appearance. It's just really strange. Yeah, and about this hair length thing. So I think in China, when you dress more masculine, you just get less sexual harassment on the street in the public space. So many of my female friends with feminine outlook were touched by strangers just in the bus or in the metro system. It happened all the time, and also in Germany. So a few friends of mine got cursed in U-Bahn or S-Bahn because they look like the soft Asian woman style, and I look tougher. So it's kind of a stereotype welfare for me because I missed out all the harassment. Yeah, but like to prove like I'm a female, sometimes I really have to raise my voice and show my breasts to show all the feminine characteristics. Yeah, so yeah, this is like a really funny thing about your appearance. And through my growth history, so like especially during my high school time, I kept dreaming about this image of getting married with the guy without face. So like it's not a specific person. I just have this dream about a heterosexual life and a marriage life. So after a few years, when I finally realized that I'm actually a lesbian and these dreams just stopped, and then finally I have some normal romantic dreams. So I just realized that this is a reflection of the social construction in my consciousness, because you see this kind of heterosexual marriage on TV, in books, in all the fiction, everywhere. So also in commercial advertisements, it's like everywhere. You never see the other versions of life. You just have this image in your mind and think, oh, I should get married one day and marry a guy. And there's another story about fighting gender stereotypes. So at my university, there is a cycling association, and I was quite active there. But it's quite male dominating in China. So we always have this kind of tech guy rushing down the stairs, doing all the cool movements. But in my year, there were several girls who were also into cycling, and so back then I have a friend who considered to run for the president, but she didn't dare to do so because there was never a female president in this cycling association. So I spent hours discussed with her. Like, I think for the president, the technical skills are not the most essential part, but you had several project management experience, and you really have the chemistry to glue people together. And she really brought a very nice atmosphere for this club. So yeah, after hours of discussion, she agreed to have a try, and then she made it. So like all the guys were totally surprised. Oh yeah, here's a photo of our club. So like only me on the right side and this girl in the middle. So all the guys like, oh, we finally have a female president. So I don't know whether there was never anyone try to get it, or like people just think we never had a female president, so why do we care? Like it just didn't happen, and I just convinced her to have a try, and it's there. So I think many times we should just anyway have a try and be confident and convince ourselves that we are good enough for something. Yeah, and then comes the enlightenment. So when I was 21 years old, I saw a post on the forum. So they want to recruit a volunteer for a theater play. So I think a theater play is interesting. So I signed up. And when I walked into the theater, they were having a rehearsal. So it's like a multi-story play. And you have just all these female performers on the stage talking about their own life stories, about being a woman, about the sexual harassment at work, about domestic violence, about forced abortion due to this infamous one-child policy in China, and about transgender, about vagina and sexual orgasm. So after that, I realized that it's the localized version of Regina's monologue, but back then I didn't know anything about Regina's monologue. Yeah, so this is a documentary about all the Chinese version of Regina monologue. Yeah, you can find it on internet perhaps. So that was really my inspiration. So it's like, before that, I always feel a bit alone, like floating in the space, and I had all the tiny doubts about these gender issues and all the questions about women, but then I know I was not alone. So like there is a whole community out there and all the theories, that research going on, and I really find a lot of answers to the questions in my heart. So like since that point I got further involved in the whole thing. So I realized that like what I've been through is not about my personal issue. It's like an institutional operation against women. So I think, in China, women are supposed to get married at about 25 years old. If you don't get married until 30 years old, you're just worthless. So once my mother told me, you're just not as competitive as your cousin because she has 2 sons and you did nothing, and you're still single at 28 years old. It really hurt my feeling, but yeah, I know this context of this social environment, but I know many people just struggle with this issue. There is also another documentary on art about leftover Chinese lawyer. So she was quite discriminated and like suppressed by this society. Then she decided to migrate to France, and now she's happily married with a French guy and live her life. Yeah, so after this enlightenment, then all the boundaries broke down, and I basically had a new life. So I was really active in social movements back in China, and I started to reflect back all the childhood memories and dare to try out all the things. I was once this rock band live executive, and also cycled around the world, and also did a lot of mountaineering. Like you just get more confidence about yourself. Yeah, and we also did some movements like around my university in Guangzhou. So we did movements about sex liberation. So it's like some intimate workshop about all the skills, because it's taboo to talk about sex in China back then, like 10 years ago. And also we did workshops about gender stereotypes and how to build up your self-identity for queer people. And we also had protests and flash mobs against sexual harassment, against intimacy violence. And we also advocated for gender-friendly facilities. Yeah, so through this activism, even though it's difficult to change the whole situation back in China, but it's kind of a deconstruction of what's already there and break down all the social norm, and also a self-empowerment. So these people who are doing this just feel really powerful. As a minority, you feel more confident and try to change the situation. Yeah, so, and when I left China and lived in Singapore and Germany, I realized that stereotypes are actually everywhere. Sometimes I was really frustrated, feel like it's somewhere deep in the human nature, because people tend to have presumptions about someone's appearance. Just looking at the appearance, you don't know anything about this person, you already have some image in your mind. Or people tend to label different groups of people, just categorize things, and then you have these stereotypes. It's just everywhere. But to come back to this topic, so my experience is just to be authentic, because just be really brave and be authentic to yourself and broaden this gender spectrum, because right now if we imagine some woman image, you have a certain image, right? And if we just be our unique existence, and this spectrum would be broadened, and then people know women is not a specific image, but like a wide spectrum, and you have all the different possibilities. And also be present. So like tonight, we are all here to speak up. And when you meet some unequal situations, just speak up. I remember last year, so I had a lot of discrimination experience because of coronavirus. And I was really grateful some people stood up for me to argue with those bad people. Yeah. So it really just happens around our daily life, and be present and stand up is really important. And unfortunately, not many people are there to do that. And here are just some photos about the activism back in China. And because of time, I don't have enough time to talk about it. But if you have questions, just feel free to ask. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay, for sharing these insights and also personal experiences. The last point you mentioned is really important because we can already create important impact by speaking up against things that feel wrong and hurt other people. And it is important to speak out, to defend each other, and not to accept certain status quo as it is what it is, but to challenge each other, to learn more, to grow, and to unlearn certain habits that we were taught already at an early age. And I'm also very happy that you said that a lot of your questions that were in your heart got answered, because I mean, there are so many young children already that have to struggle with stereotypes, and at that young age, you don't already understand what it is, what it means, and that the issue is not you, but society and the rules. And if you don't have people that support you, or if you don't have that community where you can meet people that are like-minded and understand you, then how are people supposed to grow? And that only causes health issues, or even violence, because that young girl or boy grows up and is unhappy and doesn't understand why or what the matter is. And it's very complex. So thank you for that. Are there already any questions? You can also write them in the chat. Or any comments? Do you have something, maybe similar experiences, or was there something you learned that was new? It's interesting. Ding is saying that it is a typical experience, and almost everything was the same regarding stereotypes. I also like to have this, different kind of experience from Miriam and Kay. And any other comments? Mavis?
Yeah, so that's more of a comment. I just want to say thanks to Kay for sharing her truth and for sharing her very personal experience. I think for me, it's also it's very interesting to hear from this perspective. I've had my own experience with stereotype, but which is completely different from what Kay shared, although there are certain similarities that it can draw. So I really appreciate that you are able to share this experience with us. And maybe you said it and maybe I didn't really get it, but I would like to know, maybe But I know that from the pre-feminist stage and then the feminist stage, there was this like process where you move from one stage to the one phase to the other. Is there a particular incident that like really dramatically like caused a huge change like in between these two phases? Out of the many experiences that you shared, is there like one that was like really like the biggest impacts, like the thing that really moved you, from like one space to the other?
Yes, as I mentioned, this theater play, the Regina monologues. So just at that theater place, I realized that like someone already understand what I had in my mind. And so at that moment, I realized that there is a community, and I joined this community immediately. So we had regular events, workshops, and even courses at the university, although it doesn't exist anymore right now because of the political situation. Yeah, so once you find the community, the stories are always the same. It's like, it's really empowering, and it helps a lot with my self-confidence building. Yeah.
So you would say, so that was like one of the ways you fought these kind of like stereotypes, like joining a community and building this kind of supports and being with people who understand what you're going through. And okay, yeah, great.
Yeah, I think community definitely helps a lot, and also get into the theory a bit to know that it's the environmental problem instead of you are weak or you are fragile. It's just not true. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mavis, and thank you, Kay. Any other comments or notes? Oh, yes, Olas?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for this space and for your personal experiences that you shared, because sometimes we think that these stereotypes are changing and that we don't have to worry as much as we used to worry about them. And today, for example, a friend of mine sent me like Google Translator, and how some phrases in Basque, one of the languages I speak, is translated to Spanish, and like being sad and being a nurse and being like the most feminine things were translated as she is sad, she is a nurse, she takes care of the children, and with things like he is rich, he is like things like that. And I was so surprised that those things are going to like artificial intelligence, and this proves how much we have to still take care of these stereotypes. So thank you for enlightening us and giving this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Olas, for sharing. Yannicka?
Actually, we're just sharing the computer. Hi, everybody. I'm Estera, speaking from Bonn, from Germany. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Miriam, so much for your input tonight. I feel like these conversations are so much worth having, and I'm so happy to see the environment just being filled with this kind of groups and this kind of actions. My only question would be something that I'm actually thinking about a lot, which is, we're all having a little bit of a bubble, and our friends are kind of having the same values, and it's easy to have this kind of conversation somehow. And my question is, maybe in more conservative groups, or in your experience, how do you have a productive and a constructive conversation? Because I mean, if you're being too blunt about it and very, strict about those values, which we all probably believe in, you're going to be met with a lot of resistance and kind of like a violent speech. So what's a way in which you can actually have, a constructive talk, or in your experience?
Thank you. Who would like to go first? Miriam or Kay? Kay,
I say something, or Miriam? Yeah, so for me, because when I went to Singapore, I just left my community, and it was really a difficult phase, because it's like go back to the like primo phase, it's really difficult. Yeah, so I think when one feels a bit vulnerable, like this Corona time, it's definitely good to stay in your bubble and be in charge. But when you have extra power or you feel stronger, you have the energy to reach out, then yeah, do it. So I think in your daily practice, it's already something. So like, as I said, when you see some inequalities, you speak up and be your authentic self. Just yeah. So when you behave in a feminist way or like or patriarchal way, we do see a difference in the minor things. Yeah, and it's really difficult to argue with some stubborn people, like the really patriarchal people. So try to get involved with those people in the middle. So like neutral person who is a bit interested in feminism but don't be active. So just try to get in these people as your community first, or just be your friends, just keep them around and influence them daily. So for example, I got a few friends here today as the audience, so like they don't participate in feminism actively, but when I post about these events and they are interested, so it's a way to get more of your ally. Yeah, but fighting directly to this opposite party is really difficult. Yeah, we can do it like in a mild way, relatively mild way.
Yes, and I totally echo that what Kay was just saying. And for me, at the moment, I learn to embrace myself and surround myself with people who are treating me in a respectful way, and also give me energy and not like taking energy from me. But this is also something you cannot always choose. But I would definitely encourage you, like, especially if you are part of a marginalized group and experience like intersecting forms of discrimination, I would suggest it's better like to surround yourself with people who give you energy instead of taking it away. And then if you feel comfy and powerful enough to take up a battle, then also like choose your battles really wisely, because it is you, especially like I said, if you're part of a marginalized group, you have to live like with all this negative energy your whole life. So really be aware to whom you are like giving your energy. And I think this is something I learned during the last years, and it is difficult because I mean we are confronted with stereotypes when we don't expect them, right? For example, I went like to a supermarket and someone was like greeting me and saying like in German, "Hello, welcome to Germany," and I was like, I didn't expect it. And then it's sometimes really hard to just let it go. But I mean, so I know that you can't always like choose your battles and protect yourself from these harmful stereotypes people just throw into your face. But when you have the opportunity, I really recommend to do so. Yeah.
Thank you. There was one question in the chat before we go to the other hands that are up. From Lorena, thank you for sharing your personal story, Kay. That's brilliant. I'm interested in feminist social movement in China. As you just showed us those pictures, what is the context of those movements, and what is the public attitude towards feminist?
Okay, so I think it's a really complex question. It alone can be another independent seminar. So I just talk about it very simply. So the pictures I showed in the last slide, so one of these is a flash mob against domestic violence. I think that one happened around 2012. So we did a lot of activism in between 2012 and 2016. So back then, feminism is still it's still legal to show up in the newspaper, so we can really just went on streets and did all the protests or flash mobs, like kind of like a street performance, is because it's really eye-catching. And so back then, like, not so many people cared about feminism, and even females think there's no inequality, so they don't care. So we have to raise people's awareness about feminism and try to realize this inequality and try to change the situation. So we need to be present on the newspaper and all the press, social media. But afterwards, in like 2016, the political situation is a little bit more stringent. So it's kind of dangerous to be in the public space. So the whole feminist movement is totally online. Is also this Me Too in China. It's really inspiring and exciting, but unfortunately, it's only online. And we try to reach out through the lawsuits to sue those those guys, but it's just a long battle. So. And now, right now, the social movement is really decentralized and also difficult because foreign fundings are not allowed in China. So without funding, it's just difficult to do anything. You can't rely the main battle on volunteers. Yeah, I think that's. But a very positive thing is because feminism is decentralized in China, but we have much larger background. So most of the young generation are really aware about these gender stereotypes and these issues. So like back in 10 years ago, we have to explain what is stereotype and what is feminism. And now everyone has this awareness, and we can just start to have some real discussions and try how to change the situation. Yeah.
Thank you. And now, Ronja and Felix.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the very interesting speeches. Actually, my question was basically the one you just answered, which we hadn't seen in the chat before. Yeah, we were just wondering how it is in China that if you can operate freely, or if there's any oppression from the state and especially the Communist Party. But as I understood, it changed in the last year. So yeah, you basically already answered the question. And yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, and another thing I want to add up is that public demonstration is still not allowed in China. So it actually never happened, and we still don't have CSD yet. So we had some really small scale CSD, and the people ended up in the police station. Yeah.
Thank you, Kay. And are there any other questions left or remarks? Anything you would like to share? Because otherwise, we could now go into breakout rooms. So you have the chance to talk with each other in smaller groups, exchange and network a little bit. Yeah. And then afterwards, of course, we would meet again in the main room for the final remarks. Thaksan.
Everybody's laughing. I have the feeling I destroyed a lot of good discussions.
Yeah. Worst moment, Thaksan.
Yeah, you did.
No, you're doing a great job. Thank you, actually.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
I guess.
Okay, so I think everyone who is supposed to be back is back. I hope you did have interesting conversations. We sure did in our breakout session, and the time was definitely not enough. But hopefully we got the opportunity to meet other people here, and you made some friends and people that you can take forward the conversations with. So I was wondering if there are people who would like to share anything that they discussed in their breakout room, some takeaways that or new insights that they generated that they would like to share with the whole group, just like anything you'd like to share from the breakout room. You can just like,
yeah, I want to share. Hello guys again. I want to share that in our group we were talking that like each one is from a nationality or come from a cultural background, and most of the time people assume that we behave in a certain way or that we have to be in a certain way, and that or we, in my case as a Brazilian, that I don't belong there, that I don't need to be there, that I'm from a third world country and all this kind of stuff. And we agreed that we need to talk more about people instead of assuming their behavior or their, I don't know, their culture or their thinking. You know, I suggested in an example that the trans community here in Brazil, that we are the country that kills the most of trans people. It's so sad. And my mother, she was talking to me that, oh, trans people, they are my mother, guys, believe me, I was really sad. She said, oh, they are monsters, they don't need to live. And then I told my mother, like, have you ever talked to a trans person ever before, like to say this kind of thing? And she said, no, never. And then I thought, like, so do this exercise, you know, like reach for a trans woman or trans man or a trans person, you know, a non-binary and anything, just to listen their experience, why they are trans, and then I think you will change your mind, you know. And I told her, I was harsh on her, but I told her, like, if you are Christian, as you say, you know, like I think that Jesus would do that. I think that Jesus would not say that these people don't deserve to live, you know. And then she apologized me. But I think it's this, you know, that we need to talk more, we need to communicate more, we need to listen more to people. I think that we are all living this political polarization and many thoughts about this pandemic. I know that it's horrible, but I think we need to be open to listen to these people experience, even if we don't agree with their thinking. For example, here we have our own Trumpist people that support our president, and the president, his name is Bolsonaro. He has similar thoughts as Trump has, you know, like faces and gentrification and many things like that. And I started to talk to people that support the president, like, why do you think? Why do you support him? I really want to understand, not to judge you, to understand. And of course, sometimes it's very useful, sometimes it's not, but at least you give the chance to hear people, to listen to people, and not just judge them without listening.
great. Thank you so much, Anna. This is like really great. Like, thanks so much for sharing. I just like want to check in because we are recording this and they will probably make it public. So I just want to be sure that you're comfortable, that we put this, I mean, what you just shared about your mom and the president, if you're comfortable that it stays in the video that we share publicly. Otherwise, we can also cut that part out. So just let us know.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
No problem, guys. I think I hear a police car here. No, I'm kidding. They are not going to sue me or anything like that.
Okay, great. Good to know. Thank you so much for sharing. Like, if there's like another person, just one more person, if there's anyone, just like really who really wants to talk. Otherwise, I would just like go ahead and close this session. Okay, so there's no one then. Just like so quickly before we go, just to reiterate some of the very interesting conversations and the exchanges and the learnings that we've had here. So for me, what I'm taking away, we've learned that stereotypes can be both negative and positive. So it's not just about negative stereotypes, there could also be positive stereotypes. And both of these are really harmful because they put some kind of unrealistic expectations on people on how they should behave or should not behave. Also, because of the world that we live in, it's a social construct that sometimes we are unconsciously even impacted, by this whole social construct and this society that we live in, that it takes some time to sort of deconstruct ourselves and to kind of bring ourselves to a place where we can really find ourselves for who we are and be really confident and authentic about ourselves. Also, it was really interesting to learn that some of our experiences or the experiences of stereotypes that we face really differ. So based on different factors, so our location could be our gender, our geographic location, or our class or our status. Based on all of these factors and the color of our skin, for example, that the experience that we'll face or the stereotypes that we'll experience will greatly differ. So it's not universal and it's not totalizing. But how can we fight some of these stereotypes? What kind of, what have we learned? What are we living with from this event, and to fight some of these stereotypes that we face with? We learned that we should be authentic and we should broaden our gender spectrum. So not limiting ourselves to this binary thinking that is just like female and male. That's like a broad spectrum of gender that is beyond that we should explore and be authentic to ourselves. We should be present and we should speak up. So in all situations that we encounter, we shouldn't just like just be quiet. We should learn to speak up and we should learn to speak truth to power. We should also believe in ourselves that we are good enough, so we are better, and we are the stereotypes that are sort of attached to us do not define who we are. We are who we believe we are, so we should accept ourselves for who we are, and we should be confident and be proud for who we are. And then last thing is also that we should also look for communities, to join communities that sort of share the same values, like us, people who will give us energy rather than take away energy from us. So people who will support us, people who understand us, where we are coming from. But in cases where we are faced with some battles that we do not choose, that we just have to face, then I think Miriam said very rightly that we should choose our battles, like we should choose our battles wisely. So for the other ones that if we have the opportunity to choose any battle at all, we should really choose it wisely, and we should support each other and associate ourselves with people who understand us and accept us for who we are. So these are my takeaways, and these are the tools that I'm arming myself with going out of this event and out of this conversation. So thank you everyone who joined us today for this event. Thank you so much to Kay and Miriam for speaking with us, for spending your evening with us, and for sharing all your personal stories. It was a very nice evening with all of you and all of the speakers. So please follow our social media pages. We put them in the chat. Follow our Women Leading Forward projects for events. We'll be organizing other several interesting events like this. So it'll be really nice to spend another evening and another time with you. So have a lovely evening, lovely day, and have a lovely morning wherever you're joining us from. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.